even we discussed about design patterns, all those stuffs leads to your very core things, which means standalone applications, right? What do you mean by standalone applications and dynamic applications? Or okay, you know that what do you mean by web-based applications and what do you mean by standalone applications? Anyone? Without an internet, without a browser, whatever the application depend on your machine, right? Example is yeah, Microsoft Office, even your calculator, whatever you are using in system, right? That is also a GUI based design only. You're opening a calculator, doing addition, subtraction, all the stuffs. You can develop that application also in Java. Not only Java is for web-based applications, you can use Java to develop standalone applications also. There is a lot of other technologies is there, other concepts is there to learn developing standalone applications. I'm not sure whether you heard about this name before. Have you heard about Java Swing or Java FX anytime before? Yeah, so those items are to develop standalone applications using Visual Studio VB. You used to develop the standalone applications like that. You can develop a calculator using a Java by putting buttons, text box. The calculator is going to have a buttons and one text box, right? So those things you can do in Java also using Java Swing. And the advanced item for your desktop application is Java FX, we used to call it. But all those things are, yes, standalone applications. With respect to web-based applications, we are having so much familiar concepts. You already heard about it. JSP servlet. Now getting into the servlet. So this is a very core, very basic, and this is a item first exists even before your JSP. JSP came later after servlet exists in the world. This is purely related to your core Java only. Till JSP exists, we know that at least you guys might have some idea in JSP what language you are going to play, what language you are going to write your code in JSP. Any idea? Yeah, HTML tags. In JSP.JSP, you are going to write your coding part, yes, using X, which is a very fundamental thing to work with JSP. Okay, fine. Now come back to the servlets. Yes, we will talk about JSP later, maybe tomorrow. So today, the servlets, this only came first in the world before JSP. So what is the difference between servlets and JSP is we introduced JSP to separate your designing part. You might heard about it, model view controller. View is going to be your front end pages. So in JSP you are going to develop only coding for your web front end pages. In servlet you used to write the logic in the backend. Okay, if you are having a login page, entering username, entering password, click submit. When you click the submit, in the backend logic starts work on it. It used to receive the data, verify with the database the username is available. If username is available, the password entered for that username is correct or wrong, all those verifications is your backend logic which you are going to write in a servlet. But older days before JSP came, you have to do both of the steps in Java only, both of the steps in servlet only, which means you need to have a creating HTML tags also in Java. You need to write a core Java logic also in Java. It's interesting thing. Yes, you can write HTML coding inside your Java coding also, which is a very older way. Okay, that is not recommended. That's why JSP came, but still your servlet allows you to create. Your servlet is nothing but your Java file only, .java file only. It is going to allow you to create HTML page using Java code also. This is the older thing. Okay, and we are going to learn what all are the basic steps related to the servlets. In olden days, how they have used your Java coding to create the HTML stuffs. All those things we are going to learn and talk today. Fine. To create web applications and type of pages like static and dynamic, right? You know that web pages are categorized into two things. You can create a website for your company which is going to be idle. All the pages is going to be idle means no constant. It's constant kind of stuff. Daily you are not going to change in company history or contact us page or about us page. All those things you can call it as static. And dynamic web pages is a very good example of your Amazon or whatever it is, right? Daily they have to upload images for all the items. It should keep on changing. So that is a kind of dynamic web pages. And protocols, you know that already. All the web pages, whatever we are using, Google, Gmail, or banking things, all those things are HTTP and HTTPS. What do you mean by HTTPS? Anyone? Exactly, hypertext transfer protocol. Okay, fine. Yeah, and now what is the difference between your HTTP and HTTPS? Exactly, exactly. So all our banking pages, right? Whatever we are using, all those things are HTTPS secured page. Okay. Now, an interesting thing, you are getting into the web-based applications. You know already, right? We need some server to play in this application. So you have, I think, installed Tomcat server. A lot of other servers are available. Anything, all the services is going to be in the same way. All are different brands. That's it. Now, with respect to core Java, we know that what is the starting point of your application, right? What is the starting point of your application in core Java? Yeah, main method, right? Main method is going to be starting point of your core Java application. But here in web-based applications, we are not at all going to have main method. Okay, we are having a certain map or a template or predefined thing that you are going to tell from which page or which servlet you need to start your process. That's it. That is no main method in web-based applications. Okay, but still it is going to manage it by JVM only. It is not like still we don't have a main method JVM. We are not at all depending on JVM. No, JVM is a world. Even the main method or whatever it is in web-based applications, also you will be involved with object creation, memory management of your Java applications. All those things is going to take care in JVM only. Okay, so still it is managed by JVM only, but how it is going to get start instead of main method, all those things we are going to discuss. And this is the workflow. Just imagine how you are hitting the submit button in your or login button in your Gmail, right? So at the left hand side we are the front end user. So you are sending a request all the time. We will be sending a request, either sending username password, verify you are sending a username password, requesting allow me to the home page. When you are doing compose mail, whatever it is, you are requesting again Google server to send this mail. Okay, so all the time the front end user will send a request, and at the end, very end, the server, the Google server or Amazon server, whatever the server, right? So in your project, your Tomcat server is going to receive the request, and for that particular request it will take the action and it will respond back. So the two words request and response is a very important item in your web-based applications. Okay, and whatever you are seeing in the red color box might be, if you are purely very new to these web-based applications, you need to dig a little more about it. What do you mean by controller, all those things? The red color box is going to be your Tomcat server, web server. It's very simple, like you already played cricket in a cricket ground. That is what you have learned in core Java, class objects, methods, and everything. Fine. Now, in the same ground, you can still play the tennis also. Doesn't matter. It is not, I won't allow you to play the tennis in cricket ground. If you want to play the tennis in cricket ground, what you need to do, measure some rectangular space. That's it. In that rectangular space, you can use whatever the items you want to play for tennis. You can put the net at the center, whatever it is. The complete rectangular space. You are buying something inside the. I mean, the rectangular space of your tennis ground is a subset of the cricket ground. That's. But still, you are in the cricket ground only. If you want to play tennis, create your own ground, and inside that ground, play your own match. no issues for me. That is what going to happen at the overall Java. Even though you are doing a web-based applications, you are playing in the complete ground of Java. Inside the ground, since you want to play with web-based applications, you are creating a rectangular space that is nothing but you are using a Tomcat server. So whatever the web-based or web-related items you are developing, anything might be a servlet logic written in Java, or a web page you are creating either JSP or HTML, whatever it is, all those stuffs will get inside your rectangular space. Nothing but all those things will get created in your Tomcat server. And remember, your Tomcat server is sitting on the top of your Java ground only still, and it is still managed by your JVM only. That's what shown here. You can see the database is the extra item. Yes, there is no change in it whatever you have learned in the previous session of JDBC. I told you that you are going to enter username and password. Okay, after getting the item, you are going to learn how to get in Servlet and JSP. That is fine. But after getting in your hand, you are having two string variables, username and password. That's it. After this, nothing new. You know how to write a core Java logic to connect with your database, retrieve the information from the table, verify the username entered is correct or wrong. All those things are core Java stuff. Nothing complicated here. That's why it is putting outside of the box, outside of the rectangular. It is not directly depend on your Tomcat server. It works common in a way how you have learnt without any change for either you are doing a core Java application or you are doing a web-based application. It will work in both manner. Not only database, whatever the normal core Java items you are creating, all those things is going to sit outside of the red color box, but still all those things together combined as your web-based project. Any questions on this, please ask me. Till now. Clear? Okay. If you are taking servlet in your hand, whatever the items you are learning along with the servlet to at least to complete the knowledge or complete the logics, whatever we need to discuss with respect to servlet is this is the list. You should know what do you mean by web server, what is container, and what is the life cycle of your servlet, what is the role, the request and response items in your project, and what all are the classes and interface we need to remember or we need to know, what is those methods is going to do get and post, and what is the difference between those two methods. Finally, the deployment descriptor, who is that guy, all those things we are going to discuss in this servlet session. Okay, the very first item, web server and container together, we already know web server is your Tomcat server. Okay, now what is the role of your Tomcat server, which we already discussed. Inside the Tomcat server only all your web related stuffs are going to get created. Okay, so as I told you, yeah, you can create your JSP pages, HTML pages, but apart from that you can write a Java logic for that particular page also. Whatever the Java logic you are writing for a web page, it is also treated as a web based item only, so that thing also should get created inside a web server only. And now if you are taking the logic and pages, the pages are different. All those things are written in a HTML or HTML tags with either .html or .jsp. But the servlet, Java servlet, you are going to write in same .java file only. No confusion or complication here. Since it is a servlet, the Tomcat server is providing you a separate box inside that. Inside that box only all your servlet class will get created. So the combination or the box which is going to carry all those servlet classes is called container. You are having three pages, login page is there, registration page is there, forget password JSP there. You need to write three types of logic. Login controller.java, register controller.java, forget controller.java. So all those classes will get created inside a servlet container. It is a .java file, but it's not a normal core Java file. It's a Java servlet. That's why it is getting created inside a container. That is the role of your container. Okay. So if from the web browser from the left hand side, your control will come immediately to the Tomcat server or the whatever the web server in the yellow color box. The yellow color box will be having that I mean the decision making which servlet you should go, whether a login servlet or forget password servlet or register servlet, which servlet you should go. That decision making will happen in that first yellow color box. Once the decision making is completed, it will redirect to the exact servlet inside the servlet container. Remember, if you are developing a Java project, apart from the web-based items, as I told you, you can have normal items also, like normal core Java, normal JDBC collection, whatever it is. But still, it is a web project. That stuff also will be put inside this yellow color box only. Okay. The servlet container box is in blue color. Outside of the blue color, either you can have another green color box or a gray color box. So green color box can have all the normal Java stuffs, and gray color box can have the .jsp or HTML files. Along with that, you are going to have an XML also. I can tell you the um, interesting thing now itself. Even I told you that we are not dependent on main method here. Then who is responsible to take care on the starting thing, or where exactly you are going to configure all these stuffs? You are having a lot of servlet classes, a lot of items. Where you are going to configure this, you should have one manual for configuring your project. That manual is nothing but your XML file. From today onwards, if you are learning or practicing or doing anything with respect to your web based project, you are depending on a XML file. We are going to talk about this XML file in a different way in web services, Hibernate, so many places. But remember, we need to travel with XML from today. And the heart of your web based project, heart means the configuration or the starting point, whatever you are going to configure, all those stuffs in your XML file. The name of the file is called web.xml. Okay, and that it is having another name. That is what in the previous slide you have seen, which is called as deployment descriptor. The name itself telling you are descripting the deployment, how you need to deploy. Got it? Okay, any questions on this slide? Okay, finally the life cycle. When you are starting the servlet, working on it, and ending the servlet, what's happening in the backend? What is the complete life cycle? That is what you are learning here. When you are kick off the project, generally most of the websites will talk about three methods: init of, service of, destroy of, third, fourth, fifth method. The name itself telling init of, it is initializing the servlet to start working. Service of, you can do all your work in service of method. Finally, once you want to end the project or complete the project, you can call the destroy method. So of course, the init of and destroy of is going to get only once, right? Get called only once in your whole life cycle of your project. So this is the top level learnings. But still, if you in depth, if you are reading about the life cycle, even before the init of method, there is couple of method. One is, which is simple, loading the servlet class, create servlet instance, and then call init of. Nothing, it's very simple. First point is you are dealing with servlet, load that particular servlet class. Okay, after loading, what do you mean by create servlet instance? You need to create an object for the servlet. Using that object only, we will be dealing with init of, service of, destroy of method. Instance is nothing but an object, another name of your object, right? So this is the life cycle of a servlet, and don't worry, you are not at all going to manually call or do any of these methods. Everything is automatically configured in your servlet project. Just you are going to run the project, automatically it will do all the stuffs. Okay, if you still want to configure anything, for example, the init of method is there. In the init of thing, you can initialize the parameters. For example, if you are dealing with JDBC, your JSP server project is using JDBC. So initially you need to configure the database details or the database username, password. All those things you can configure in init-of. So where this init-of parameter you are going to configure? Again I am telling the word configuring. So where you are going to configure, of course, in the deployment descriptor, which is nothing but web.xml. Okay, and the service of method, that is what you are going to work. It is having a very important roles we are going to discuss in the upcoming slides. Okay, any questions here? Fine. Here you go, the interface and classes associated with your servlet. We are keep on talking about this, right? Based on the interface only, your class used to get derived. So here the generic servlet is the top level class which is get derived from the couple of interfaces like servlet config, serialization, and HTTP servlet is a subclass which extends generic servlet. And finally, whatever the new servlet you are creating, that class is going to extend HTTP servlet. This is the relation. Okay. Um, I think serialization we already talked in your collection. Can anyone tell me what do you mean by serialization? The state of the object into a stream of bytes. Okay, before storing into files or storing in a database, whatever it is. So it is automatically implemented in your servlet class. Okay, and you are having one more interface, servlet, that is a core servlet interface. That's fine. Also you are having one thing, servlet config. One item is missing here. You are having one more item, servlet context interface also. um, in olden days, with respect to servlet, this is a very important interview question. What is the difference between servlet config and servlet interface? Servlet context interface. Or they may hide the word interface. They simply ask what is servlet config and what is servlet context. So you should tell both are interfaces. Okay, now what is the difference is in both servlet config and servlet context, you are going to maintain some parameters, maybe initialization parameters or your application parameters. Okay, now the difference is the servlet config will maintain the scope of the variables at the starting time itself, only starting time only. Once started, the visibility of those configuration is not at all available for all other classes. But servlet context, if you are defining or parameters or any initialization thing in your servlet context, the visibility or the scope of those items is going to be available for your whole project. A kind of private and a kind of public stuffs. That's an example I'm telling. Okay, that's it. And another interview question may be, what is the difference between generic servlet and HTTP servlet? Means from the HTTP servlet itself, you can start. HTTP servlet extends generic servlet. HTTP servlet is providing you the service of method, which is having do get and do post methods, which you will be using normally for your handling request and response stuffs. Generic servlet is a superclass of HTTP servlet. It is providing little more methods compared to your HTTP servlet do service of method. That's it. Okay. And finally, user defined is whatever the servlet you are creating. Remember, if you want to write a logic, you are having a login page, you are going to write a logic in the backend to get those items connecting with the database or if condition to verify true or false, all blah 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 blah, etc. But you are going to write this in a Java coding only. But still, you are going to create a file is called new servlet. New under the new menu, you will be selecting servlet, not new class. So far, you have created new class. Now you need to create a new servlet. There is a difference between class and servlet. Class is a normal member which you are going to treat a kind of thing which is going to act as a having main method or a normal predefined class. But servlet is a configuration item which you are creating for your server item. Servlet is a server item. That's it. Okay, so what I'm trying to tell here is even though you are creating new servlet, whatever the servlet, the extension of the file name is going to be .java only, which comes back the discussion to your very first class. In Java, you are not at all doing anything without a class. So servlet also you are writing in a .java file. When you are compiling the project, your .java file is going to generate a .class file for your servlet. That's it. Okay. Any questions here? Fine. And finally the do get and do post. We are going to exactly see how these methods are working when we are discussing about JSP only. I can prove it because these are related, both do get and do post related to the request and response coming from your web page end. Right now we are not going to have a separate web page. You're going to use the HTML in Servlet. So tomorrow when we are discussing about we're discussing on JSP, we will talk more on your to get and to post method. For today, just for time being, what is these methods will do is it will handle your request and response. That's it. Okay. And finally, this is a kind of architecture. When you're creating a dynamic web project, you can see where exactly your web.xml will get created is under web by enough folder. You may see one more folder called web content. The root, the yellow color folder name is called, and real time in your Eclipse it is going to show us web content, I guess. Inside web content you will be having web by enough. Inside web by enough the file web.xml get created. We need to follow the architecture, guys. If you are placing this web.xml in different location in your project will not work. Okay. Also, when you are creating a new project, new dynamic web project, don't click the finish button at the first page itself. You need to go next, because at the last page only you'll be having an option generate deployment descriptor. You need to select the checkbox and then click it so that web.xml will automatically create it in your project. If you missed to do that step, then you need to create this web.xml manually, and it is not sure all the times. If when you are creating manually it will configure correctly. Okay, so you should remember that stuff also. Okay, so that's it with the discussion. I can show you some samples how to create a dynamic web project, how to create a servlet, how you are going to run it. Before that, any questions, please ask me.
Okay, any questions on the theoretical part on the Ganesh Nikhil meeting? Okay, let's complete the JSP theory thing also, so that tomorrow we can together see how JSP with servlets also. Okay, let me play that recording as well.
Fine. Okay, yesterday we just completed the servlets, right? Any questions is there with respect to servlets? Anyone? Okay, so we are going to get started with JSP, a little extended version for your servlet or an additional feature which you are going to divide the business logic and presentation logic. So you might heard about the MVC word, right? MVC architecture, the model view controller architecture, which means um, all the three items are different one and they are not tightly binded. It is easy to divide it. And what is the need or advantage if you are having all the items separately? When you consider model view and controller, your model is going to be your database related stuffs or beans, and view is going to be your front end pages, and the controller is the logic you're really writing for the front end pages. Okay. So why this MVC architecture came means you can develop so many items in a very less time, which means you can divide the work for the resources. You can recruit a person who is highly strong in designing pages, right? You can use him to develop the pages, and you can give writing the backend logic for those pages to the core Java developer, right? So um, all those works are going to be divided into different resources so that we can complete in a less time consumption. So the model view controller architecture plays a vital role when you are dealing with web-based applications, right? Not only the time consumption, it's easy to rebuild, it's easy to integrate with any other stuff since all those items are individual components. Okay. So to achieve this model MVC architecture, there is a new item exists in older days. Maybe after Servlet, they introduced the JSP. So once JSP existed, we are not at all going to write code for creating or developing pages or using HTML stuffs in your Java coding. You can completely write the HTML stuffs in a JSP file. Okay, and let's see what all are the additional features it is going to provide you compared to the servlet. Pages, okay, extension of servlet. I will come to that point later. Separates presentation layer, okay, and fast development than servlet. I will tell you why it is. What is the reason why you are telling that fast development than servlet? And JSP are built on the top of the Java servlets API. So yeah, top of the Java Servlets API. So like servlets, JSP also has access to all the Power Enterprise Java API. Generally, what they are trying to tell here is there is one thing. Servlet is completely Java. We know that you are writing Java coding in a .java file, even though it is a servlet. Try to get do post method. Inside that, you can write your Java codings, code Java stuffs, whatever it is. Like how whatever you can do in JSP, like in JSP you are going to design the web pages using HTML tags. In servlets also you can do that. That is what we have seen yesterday. Like how in this end you can accomplish the HTML stuffs in the same way. On the other hand, in this side, even though JSP is going to have only HTML tags, still it is providing you an option to write your core Java lines also in the JSP page. Okay, so using you need to write those codes also into inside some tags only. We are going to learn what all are the tags, but still, just remember one thing. What all are the stuffs you guys can do in a servlet file? All the stuffs you can do in your JSP and also one point. Second point, it is not that whatever the things you can do in a JSP side, you cannot completely do in a servlet side, which means servlet may be a subset of the JSP because JSP is providing an extra features or a lot of extra items compared to your servlet. That is your second point, extension of servlet. Yes, you can implement Java services, CSS, JSTL, Java Service Transition Language to maintain the scope of the variable between one page to another page. So much stuffs, Ajax, implementing script, so many things you guys can do in JSP, which is not possible in your servlet end, because in servlet you know that it is purely a kind of core Java stuffs. Okay, so that is one thing you should remember all the time. And the fourth point, faster development than servlet because it's compiled before they are processed by the server, which means if you remember yesterday, whatever the change you guys are doing in the servlet, I asked Ajay to comment a particular line, do print writer, create print writer object, write those statement, all the steps. And after running, he stopped the server and configured the web.xml, all those things. If any change you guys are doing in the servlet end, you need to stop the server, run from the beginning. Then only whatever the changes you have done will get reflected in your project. But it's not like with your JSP pages. You are having a login page and you are having a login servlet also. In servlet, you have completed your core Java coding, fine. In login page, you are having two text box and a button. You are running the project. Your project is currently running. You want to add one more text box in the page. You can open the JSP file. You can add the designing code for one more text box, save it. You no need to restart the server. Just in the browser, click the refresh button. The third text box will automatically added in it. That's why we are calling it is a fast development. But still, yes, if you need to write a logic for the third component, third text box, you need to write a logic in the servlet end, and whatever the logic you have written will get effect after you restart only. This is a difference between a change happening in your servlet file, a change is happening in your JSP design oriented file. Okay, I can show that when you are seeing the sample. Okay, I think it's resolved for you. And this is the flow. Flow is not at all going to be different compared to your servlet, which we discussed yesterday. Exact flow is going to happen for your JSP file also. Just remember, servlet is a subset of your JSP. So whatever the format, whatever the process applicable for servlet is same as in your JSP also, right? Generally, why we need a JSP is just we are dividing the designing part, but still you are going to use a servlet to write a logic in the backend. But in any way, even you guys are only having in some scenario, let us say you are not at all writing any logic in the backend. You are having 2 or 3 pages. In first login page you are having redirect to registration page, from registration page to you are redirecting to forget page. So this involves no logic written at the backend. In this kind of scenario, the JSP file transition only will get happen. At the time it may look for the JSP servlet engine instead of a normal servlet engine. Okay. Other than that, the process whatever we discussed is exactly same. You can compare this image with the yesterday's image also. The same thing, the green color box whatever you are seeing, JSP file, JSP servlet engine, all those are going to sit inside your web server. Inside web server, I told you the servlet container is going to hold the servlet files. On the outside, if you remember the yellow color box, the outside of your servlet container, all these files is going to get sit. Okay. Life cycle of a JSP. Again, it will take the complete life cycle of your servlet since it is built on the top of it. Only difference is before the servlet life cycle starts, it is having an extra 2 items to complete its life cycle. First, I will tell you at the bottom, there is only three process: init, service, and destroy. But if you remember yesterday, we just discussed 2 more items will be there before init of, right? Do you remember? Like loading the servlet class and creating an instance for that servlet class, and then only your init of service of. That is applicable here also. Might be those 2 boxes are missing, but same life cycle. It is taking the same life cycle of your servlet. Before starting the life cycle of your servlet, the two process called as transition and compilation. Remember one thing, what it is going to be going to get happen in transition compilation. I told you that okay, yeah, servlet file is a .java file only, that's fine. But .jsp, it's a different extension. Java server pages actually, right? And also inside that you are not on the top you are not at all directly writing the Java coding mostly. You are writing the HTML tags. So it is actually a different format. But when you are running the project, of course, we need to convert into a Java item completely. If that guy JSP is converted into a class file, then only you can treat as same as your servlet. So the very first process, parsing the JSP file to a servlet file, which means your .jsp will get will get transition into a .java file only. We may not see this in our eyes in the front end, but at the back end, this is what happening. Your .jsp will get transition into .java. After .java, you know the process. From the very first session onwards, we are talking. Yes, when compiling, your .java will get converted into a .class file, and that is what happening here. So in transition, JSP converts into servlet file. Servlet file, you know that nothing but a .java file, and at compilation, servlet file will convert into a servlet class. Not even servlet. Normal .java is going to get converted into a .class. That's it. After that only your life cycle of a servlet will get starts in your JSP life cycle. Okay, just you need to remember these two process, transition and compilation for your JSP life cycle before the life cycle of a servlet. That's it. Okay. Huh. There is an important 5 tags will be there. What is the use or what is the need of those tags you need to learn. We know that in JSP we are going to use HTML tags normally, fine. But apart from HTML tags, how you can interact or how you can use your own Java codings. So for achieve those kind of things, rather in 5 set of things you can achieve Java codings, and those JSP 5 tags only we are talking about it now. The first tag is scriptlet tags. The syntax is it will open and close with the percentage symbol. Okay, it is not like slash percentage at the end, guys, like an HTML tags. It's a normal person open, less than is open and greater than is closing. That's it. Okay, open percentage, closing percentage, and inside that you can see out.println might be it is writing your IP address in the I mean in the web page, but still remember one important stuff. If you are using a scriptlet tag, inside the scriptlet tag, forget you are in a JSP land. Just imagine you are in a Java land. You can write all your pure Java codings in it. Even you can write system.out.println inside this scriptlet tag. It will print the item in your console. Definitely. Okay, so whatever the exact Java items you can put inside this scriptlet tag. And if you ask me what are the scenarios we may need this scriptlet tag is, yesterday we discussed that you need to configure where exactly you want to start your project. Either it may be from a servlet or it may be from a JSP or HTML file. Let us assume that you are starting from a JSP file. Um, your page name is like employee details. So you need to start from employee details page. When you are landing employee details page, at the top of the page there will be one drop down box. Select employee ID. When you click the drop down, it should list all the employee IDs. Whatever the ID you are selecting in the drop down list, for that ID at the bottom of the page, it is going to list all the information. In this scenario, your starting point is from that page, maybe employee listed.jsp. You are directly going to that page and you are starting. You are not at all traveling through Servlet. In this scenario, very first time itself, you need to list out the IDs, right? Automatically, how many IDs are available in the database, you need to pick and list here. Since you are not traveling through Servlet, directly coming to this page, in this page, you need to do your JDBC connection, retrieve all the query from your table, complete ID list from your table, and then assign that list to the GUI drop-down list. So you can do that using scriptlet tags inside this percentage symbol. You can complete your core Java JDBC implementation. Okay. Most of the time it is not advisable. We should not load more item from the client end, front end, but still a rare scenario or based on the requirement you can do. I am telling one of the example. Other than that, all those Java items you can write here in this scriptlet tag. And declaration tag, it will start with percentage exclamation mark. Okay, just declaring and defining variables, we'll be using the declaration tag. And the syntax or example, even you can create an object for your class or inbuilt class. That example is also there. You can see circle A equals new circle, right? Whatever the item you globally do outside the method, inside the class, you can do using declaration tag also. And expression tag, if I'm asking you to print something in the console, you will use sysout.println and print the variable. But if it is in the page, you can use percentage equal symbol and display the variable. And at the bottom, you guys can see two examples is there. One is wherever you want to display a variable in your web page, you can use percentage equals. But before that, you can see they have declared the variable as 0 using scriptlet tag. It's a scriptlet tag. Scriptlet tag either one line or two line or up to n number of lines. All the logic Java code you can do it. Declaration tag only, variable declaration or definition only you can do it. Still, you can do this int count equals 0 using any of the scriptlet or declaration also, no issues. After once declared, then wherever or how many times you want to display that variable, percentage equals is the syntax to display the variable. Okay. Any questions on these three items? Yeah. Okay. And the rest of the two items is going to be comments and directives. Comments, we know that how to do that. It's a common item. Even in HTML also we used to comment like this only, I guess. Percentage, two hyphens, right? And end with two hyphens, percentage. And the last item is an important one, Directives tag. Under directives we are having three items. Include, page, taglib. Let me come from the bottom. Tag lib. In Java, if you want to use any inbuilt items, you need to import the package. If you are trying to use a file, you need to do import java.io.file, right? So if you want to use any items, yes, you need to import so that you can get a help from that particular location. It is a JSP, Java Server Pages, but inside that you are going to use the tags, HTML tags, right? All the HTML tags. So to use those items, where you are going to get support is you need to mention this line taglib URI equals the location. It is a predefined item. When you are creating a JSP, automatically this guy will come percentage at the rate taglib. By default it will come, it will support for your HTML tags. In later advanced things we may need to work on Spring MVC, Spring JSP. So instead of the default item, you might need to use the Spring kind of tags. At the time, we need to declare this manually. Taglib URI, where is the item is coming from, where you are getting the support. You need to mention this. That is the use of your taglib. And second item, page import. This is purely related to your scriptlet tags. I told you whatever you are doing in Java, you can use a scriptlet stack, fine. So you can create a file or whatever it is. If you are using a file coding in your scriptlet, then it is going to give you an error, import the package. How you can import the package? It is not simply clicking the import package, it will import automatically like you guys are doing in Java. You need to write this code, page space import equals what is the current corresponding package needed. You need to do that. When you are doing why we need a util package, under util what we have learned, anyone? Hmm. Exactly, collections. And for JDBC, what we imported? Java.sql. Whatever the support you need or whatever the import needed for the codings you are having inside the scriptlet tags, you need to have this line for all the corresponding packages. And the very first item include file. It may be either if you want to attach 2 or 3 JSP files in a single JSP, you can use it, or you can design a page. In that page, you are having on download link for your Word document or PDF attached in that particular page also. You can give include file equals whatever the file you need to include in that particular JSP, you can use it. So the subcategories under directives tabs is also important. Page include taglib. Okay, all these 5 items we will be using in your JSP files. Very, very important, right? Means I'm asking you to create 10 text boxes in a page. What you will be doing? How we need to do? Are you going, or let us say 50 text boxes, or how many IDs you are having in the table? That much text boxes you need to create. So you may get 30 or 40 or 50. So based on the condition how you are going to create it, it should happen dynamically. Every time you cannot manually do it because the value may change. The table value, number of IDs value may change if you are deleting some records or adding some records. So we need to take a count, and based on the count you need to create a for loop, and inside for loop you need to put the HTML design line. So for creating those for loop and all, you need to use the scriptlet tags, and inside the for loop how you are going to put the HTML tag, and after putting the HTML tag how you are going to close the for loop using scriptlet tag. All those things are mandatory stuffs which you need to understand very clearly. I can show you some examples of these items when we are seeing the sample. Okay. So an important interview discussion like what all are the implicit objects for your JSP. Yeah, the JSP implicit objects. What all are the implicit objects? You know, means at least you can tell 4 or 5 items. Um, the request and response we have already seen in the servlet. You know that what it is for to handle your request and response thing inside your do guest and do post method. Config we have already seen. Application is nothing but servlet context. I told you config will maintain the scope of the information at initial stage only. Other files cannot access it. Context means the scope of your information is accessible all over the files across the project completely. Page context is also same thing. Servlet context is going to have the servlet information. Your page context is going to have the page information, like if you want to set any value information across the pages. And page object is nothing but your page input. What is the use of page means is you can import your Java file. Exception JSP also you can throw the exception. Okay. Out of this, all the first item also you know that yesterday we have seen print writer for your servlet, which you want to write something in the page. In this end, we are having JSP writer to something in the page. Okay. Now the very important stuff is the session. What you are seeing there, HTTP session. That we are having a separate slide. I think we are going to discuss in that. Okay, now getting into the designing part, right? A couple of designing stuffs have shown in these slides, you can remember, and after that you can create your own HTML stuffs. I am designing one end, and for that I am going to write logic in another end. How you are going to integrate these two items is using a form tag. I am having a login servlet. For that login servlet, you are designing a page. Your page belongs to that login servlet. That means all your page designing should put inside the form tag only, like a block, like a method block or class block. Inside that only we'll be doing all the steps like that. Inside the form tag, you need to start or you need to put all the designing code for a particular servlet. So action and method is a very important attribute for your form tag. In action, you are going to tell where exactly you want to go. For login.jsp, you want to go to login controller, mention login controller. Or from login.jsp, you want to travel to registration.jsp, which means jsp2.jsp. Then you should mention the JSP page here, complete JSP file name here. And method. Yeah, this is the right time to talk about your get and post method. Why we are having two methods in your service methods in your servlet end. So a page, you are traveling from a page to the backend logic. When traveling, you are going to carry something with you. When you are traveling from a login page, you are carrying the username and password values with you to the servlet destination. If you are using a get method, whatever the information you guys are carrying, all those information will get appended at the top of the URL, which means you can see what is the value is traveling from this end to other end, which means this is not at all secure. So whatever the page you guys feel that it should be secured, you should use that form method as post only. Post will not at all append anything at the top of the URL. This is the first difference. And second difference, there is some, even though if you're using get method, it will carry something at the appended URL. There is such limitation, I guess. Only maximum 2K data only it can append. So the rest of the data it may lose. So always have a practice of using post method, whatever the page is going to carry the information, important information. You are in one page. For example, you are logging into Gmail, username, password. For that particular page, we need to use post only. No one should see the username and password value at the top URL. Now you logged, it's success and you are logged in. Okay, you are checking your email, everything. When Ajay is logging in as username and password, I am a Google server. I verified Ajay. He is a valid user and the credentials are correct. I have assigned an ID for Ajay 150. Even Ajay doesn't know that, but his ID is 150 for that particular session. He logged in, he is playing with the mails, he is composing something. When he clicks send, his request is going to come again to me. At the time, I'm not going to verify his username and password, it is already verified. the ID whatever assigned for Ajay is invisible for him, but being a developer, being the owner or being the server, I know there is an ID set for Ajay. So I can get that ID from the compose box 150. So for 150, I can do all these stuffs. In this kind of scenario, you can use get method. That's fine. At the top URL, you might see ID equals 150, but that doesn't matter. By seeing that value 150, you cannot do anything, right? In that kind of scenario, get is fine. You can use the get method. Only when you are carrying the secured information, you need to use the post method. And this is the role of your form tag. Okay, now with the servlet end, with the front end we have seen, you need to use a form tag. You need to tell which servlet you need to go. That's completed. Now you are traveling from the JSP to servlet. You are carrying the values with you. How I am going to get the values from you? Using couple of methods. Get parameter. For all the design you guys are doing, username text box, password text box. Right now you are having two text boxes. For both of the text boxes, you need to give some name. Any name. Name equals uname, name equals pwd in your JSP. Using the same name, you are going to get the values here. For example, string username equals request dot get parameter of, inside the open and close parenthesis, you need to use double quotes and give your uname. Same thing for password, double quotes pwd. Okay. And set parameter is a reverse version. If you want to set something from the servlet end to JSP end, when you are traveling from servlet to JSP, you can automatically predefine some values in the text box. You can set some values in the text box. At the time, you can use the set parameter. These two methods belongs to that. Okay. Now the second concept, page forwarding. How exactly the web-based is working. Um, what is the process of your Gmail? You are clicking the submit. The request is going to Google server. If your credential is fine, the Google server need to take a decision, go to this page, the different page, not same login page. If your credential is fail, then it is going to take you to the same login page with the error message. If it is pass, it is going to take you to the new page. But still, in both of the end, how it is going to take you back to the particular page. So using a couple of methods, request dispatcher and send redirect. Both of the methods will do the same work only. You are going to use this method in your servlet end. Both of the methods will do the same work only. The difference is, if you want to travel from one page to another page in a same server, we should use request dispatcher. If you want to travel from one page to another page for the same server, you need to use request dispatcher, which means you are using Gmail, the login page where your request will go now. Gmail server. Then it is giving back to the compose page, inbox page. Now you are composing and sending the mail. When you click send, where your request is going now? Again to the Google server. So all your work will belongs to your same server. Okay. So the traveling from which page to which page, the decision making is taken by server here, right? Do you agree the point? Google server, only one server, Google server only is taking the decision here. But the second item, send redirect, just hear the statement what I am going to tell and tell me if you get any examples. Um, from one page for one server will get travel to another page for another different server, and this action will taken place in the client end only. What is the example you can give for this? You are working on a page belongs to one server. In your end, you are a client. In user end, you are traveling to a different page, but that page belongs to another different server totally. When you are searching, adding all the stuffs you are doing in Amazon. For all the requests you are dealing with Amazon server, but finally when you are clicking the payment ICICI or HDFC, it will take you to the HDFC server page. And also this traveling will get happen in client end only, your end only, not from Amazon server end, right? So in this kind of scenario we'll be using send redirect. Got it? Maybe you can remember the word send redirect start with yes, so the opposite is C, client, right? So send redirect will be implemented in a client end to travel from one page server to different page server. Okay, and request dispatcher is going to get happen in a server, same server side redirection. Okay, and finally the session tracking in JSP servlets. What do you mean by session tracking generally? Anyone? We are going to track something and we are telling that session tracking. What do you mean by that? Um, you are using a bank page, you are not at all touching your keyboard for 5 or 10 minutes, what it will happen? Timeout. They are monitoring it, they are tracking your session, right? And you are using Gmail, all the stuffs, your personal laptop, you are shut down, and next time you are opening it, when you are opening a Gmail, if you saved your password, it will come automatically. You don't need to re-enter it manually, right? So where it is tracking your saved username and password. So all these things are coming under your session tracking techniques. The first and fourth is the inbuilt one, like cookies and session. And here you need to remember in a same way, like send redirect. S is opposite for C, but here session, yes, to track the session in the server end, we will be using session. Okay, so yes to yes, session to server, and the opposite thing to track the tracking in the client end, we will be using cookies. In your day-to-day life you are using these cookies. I told you that when you're opening the Gmail, the password and username password will automatically come directly, you will be landing in the inbox, right? Let us assume that I am asking Ajay, for a week I need your laptop. Okay, so maybe he is my close friend, he can give the laptop, but before giving, even though close friend, even Ajay is giving his laptop to his parents or brothers also, what is the first step he will do? Exactly. And did you notice when you are clearing the history, there will be one option called cache or cookies. That's it. So the client end. Okay. So session tracking in server end will be using session. Session tracking in client end will be using cookies. It's inbuilt class. You can straight away create an object like cookies C equals new cookies of, session S equals new session of to track your session. And okay, and yeah, the middle two items, hidden form field URL rewriting is the one we need to check, and it's very simple, not complicated. The second item I already explained you, hidden form field. As I told you, there will be an ID 150 assigned for Ajay, but it should be invisible for him. He is seeing the page, inbox page. He is not at all going to see any value 150 anywhere. But I know that there is a text box is there. In the text box 150 value is there. It is invisible for Ajay, so I have hidden the text field. When he is clicking the send button, I am going to use my code string id equals request.get parameter of double quotes HID. HID is the name of the hidden text box. It will give me the value 150. Right, so you can use hidden form field in a particular page also. User is not at all able to see that, but still being a developer, you know that there is a text box and you know that there is a value assigned for the text box. When you are trying to get the value using get parameter, you are going to get it in your hand. That is one tricky way. And another item, URL rewriting, appending something to the URL. Get method will automatically append all the item, but in case in your scenario you are having a login page, username, text box, password, text box, button. After the button you are having a registration link. When you place the cursor, you can see the link at the bottom, right? Where in real time also in our life, in when you are browsing, maybe so many links you can try. When you are placing the cursor at the bottom, what is the destination it is going to go? It will show what is the destination. Apart from the destination, it can have some URL rewriting, right? Yeah. When you are traveling to the servlet, you can carry some values with you. Manually, you can hard code that value. Any ID, any name, any data you want to carry when you are traveling to a particular destination, you can do that. That is called URL rewriting. There will be a default URL. Along with that URL, you are rewriting something. How you can carry those values and all, I'm going to explain in the example. Okay. Any questions on this till now?
Hey guys, do you have any questions? Nikhil, can you hear me, guys? Nikhil?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no question.
Okay, then let's do the samples on this JSP servers tomorrow. Okay.
Okay.
Hope you will be joining on